means the same thing for everyone.
So that's a grounds for muting people, is it?
Yes, if he's going to have crispy pork belly skin, shoots, we're now live on. You know what? The opening thing that somebody goes on to live onto Facebook, they're going to hear about Mr. Alan Berg of 100 Stanhope Road in the penthouse who likes crackling. That's what they're going to hear.
That's what I mean.
Was that what you meant?
It's an age thing.
Is that what you meant, crackling?
No, what I meant was that we're getting interference on his speakerphone, but unfortunately, the Scousers amongst us, Ralph, you and I, we're going to have to keep up the good name of Manchester.
I have no idea what you're all talking about.
Ah, yeah, good boy. Good boy, you are. Why is somebody coming to our door? Strange. Getting a delivery. Right, yes. Okay, are we all ready?
Yeah, we certainly are.
It's Andrea. Afternoon, Andrea. She's come back. Right, yes. Okay, we're going to start at the beginning of the book of... I can't get over the fact that Jonathan Edwards has got a working video camera.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Right. I think that was a miracle too. Is it? Fiddler on the Roof. Yes. Okay. So we're going to have a look at the very beginning of the book of Bamidbar. We just started a new book of Bamidbar. And at the very beginning, we've got a census, a counting of the Jewish people. During a 40 years in the desert, we were counted a total of 4 times. The first time was literally as we left Egypt in order to know how many of us left. That was on the 15th of Nisan in the year 2448. That was the first time we were counted. The next 3 times all have something in common, as we will see. The second one was after Moshe comes down the Mount Sinai with the second tablets of stone. So, of course, on Shavuos, we're about to celebrate Shavuos, we do not receive the tablets. We hear the Aseret HaDibros, we hear the 10 Commandments. Then Moshe afterwards goes up the mountain, spends 40 days, comes down 40 days later with the tablets, and that's when he breaks them on. It's Barbara. He breaks them on the 17th of Tammuz. So Shavuos, when they say, what happened to Shavuos? We heard the 10 Commandments. We don't receive the tablets of stone. We get a glimpse of them 40 days later on the 17th of Tammuz, but they get broken because of the sin of the golden calf. Moshe goes back up again, get forgiveness till Rosh Chodesh Elul, 3rd time, until on the he comes back down the mountain with the second set of tablets of stone. That was on Yom Kippur. And on the next day, on the 11th of Tishrei, 2449, so just under 6 months after we leave Egypt, we are counted for the 2nd time. The reason for that one was because there'd been a plague after the sin of the golden calf. The 3rd time is the one in this week's Sedra, which takes place 6 months later. After the sin of the golden calf, we get forgiveness on Yom Kippur. We are then told to go and build the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. That takes us from Tishrei all the way through until the end of Adar. Okay, going to different commentaries. They receive all the gold and silver. Everything came in very quickly. But on the 23rd of Adar, Moshe starts erecting the Mishkan. He does that himself for 7 days. And on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Mishkan is completely done. That's by Yom HaShmini, the 8th day, the Sedra of Shmini that we had already, when Aaron takes over as Kohen Gadol. In brackets, we must note at the moment here that according to some commentators, this doesn't take place from the 23rd of Adar through to the 1st of Nisan, but actually Moshe begins his week of building and dismantling the Mishkan on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and Aaron takes over on the 8th. Be that as it may, it happens then around Rosh Chodesh Nisan. A month later, on the 1st of Iyar, 2449, a month later, we have the 3rd counting of the Jewish people in the desert, and that's the one we're looking at now. By this point, We've been out of Egypt just over a year, 1 year and 2 weeks. We left on the 15th of Nisan 2448. A year and 2 weeks later, on the 1st of ER 2449, we are counted for the third time, which is the one we're going to look at now. And then, just to complete the picture, at the end of our 40-year journey, the beginning of the year 2488, we are counted for the fourth time. This is because of the sin at Shittim, when we are about to go in and Balak hires Bilam to curse the Jewish people. When he's not able to do that, he convinces the Moabite princesses to come along, and we have a mass misbehavior. And so there was a plague, and we counted then. So we are now at the third counting of the plague of the Jewish people. Do you have a Chumash in front of you, Chumash Bamidbar? If you don't, I can put it up on the screen. Would you like me to put it on the screen? You've got a Chumash. Alan, have you got a Chumash? You said a good, old style. Jeffrey, you got a Chumash and a Rav.
You got a Chumash.
Ian, you've got one in the Rosh.
Yes.
And Jonathan's just gone to get a Chumash. Can somebody remind Jonathan that we're speaking of the Jewish Bible, Book of Numbers?
What was the Sedra where we had it wrong with the Moabite women?
Bollock.
I'm sorry, I just missed what we were saying.
I was just saying, can somebody please remind Jonathan that we're speaking about the Old Testament when you go to get your Chumash?
What are we looking at?
Bamidbar.
Oh, right.
The fourth book of the Jewish Bible.
No.
Yes. It's amazing. The last time I saw you in shul, we were still doing the second book.
2 years ago.
I didn't want to finish that bit off, but I'll let you do that yourself. I just line up the things you should be at.
Yeah.
So let's read the first apostle, because I don't think we'll do any more. I don't even need to do any more than the first two pasukim, because they are packed with a central concept. Vayidam Hashem HaMoshe, Hashem speaks to Moshe Bamidbar Sinai. There is specifically in the desert of Sinai, Ba'ohel Moyed, and he speaks to him at the tent of gathering, i.e. the tent of the appointed meetings, i.e. the Mishkan. As we've already described when this happened, the first of the second month, as we learned on the history shared the other day, the names of the months of the year only come along. The first time we have the names is by the story of Purim. Until that time, for the entire Chumash and for most of Tanakh, we are referred to the months by their number: first month, second month, third month, etc., which does give rise to one story being a whole machlokas when it happened. There's a machlokas and one of the stories in the Torah as to when it took place. Anybody know which story I'm talking about? The Torah tells us it happened on this month, and it started on that month and ended in this month. Gives us the numbers of the month, the second month. And there's a machlokas, there's a disagreement. Is a second month Iyar, is a second month Cheshvan, and that is the story of the flood. Noach and the flood, it speaks a lot about the second month and the third month. And Rashi quotes, and he quotes the argument in the Gemara: is this the second month? Is it Iyar or is it Cheshvan? Because bearing in mind, although once we get to Egypt, once we leave Egypt, everybody agrees that the first month is Nisan, because we get given a mitzvah. This month should be for you as the head of months. But until we leave Egypt, the world went according to Tishrei. That was when God created the world. And so therefore, the question is when the Torah, before we leave Egypt, when it says the second month, is it speaking from the perspective of the world? Or is it speaking from the perspective of the Jews who would be the ones who would read the Torah and keep it going? But everyone agrees that once we leave Egypt, when the Torah gives a number to the month, the first month is always Nisan, and then it follows on from there. And this book of Bamidbar specifically wants to go back to the people as a community. The end of the book of Shmos, when we were last in shul together, we are reading about the building of the sanctuary, which was for the community. But in the book of Vayikra, which we finished last week, the whole book of Vayikra details the sanctification of the Jews, but it also looks at the individual sanctity of the home, how you do individually, sanctity of the bedroom, of the kitchen. And even at the end of last week's Sedra, the value, the erech, the value of each individual, if somebody does a schnodder, that they're going to give the value of themselves or of their wife, their kid, or whatever it might be, to the Mishkan, bearing in mind the importance of this in an era 3,000 years ago when the majority of the nations around them worshipped their false deities by the sacrifice of their children. Molech, for example, was the chief amongst them. If you wanted to, the best sacrifice you can make to Molech was give your firstborn son into the fire. So here the Torah tells us you want to give the financial value of the individual. And now the book of Bamidbar was saying the whole community. We're coming together. The whole purpose of it is to have the individual counts as part of the community. And so Moshe is spoken to Bamidbar. In a desert, no one owns anything. The place is totally hefka. It's not inhabited. And so we're told when we are counting, as we will do, when we're counting the Jewish people, every one of the Jewish nation have got to remember, du bist agonisht. You're a nothing unless you're part of something. You can't, but the wicked son in the Haggadah, we knock out his teeth. Why? Why do we knock out his teeth? Hello, can anybody talk? I've not muted you, other than Alan, you're not muted.
On edge.
Sorry, Ian?
We don't knock out his teeth, we set his teeth on edge.
If you want to do the politically correct one, we'll set his teeth on edge. If you want to translate the word, you blunt his teeth, literally, you crack him one. But regardless of whether we're speaking from a Scouse point of view or from Her Majesty in London, why does he
What's the difference?
But why? Why did he receive this punishment? Whatever the punishment is, Ian, I'm the one that's pedantic, not you. My question I'm asking is, why does the wicked son, not the wicked son, why does a son who's identified in the Haggadah with the name Rasha, why does he receive the punishment or the answer that he does? The Haggadah tells us, Lefi shahoitzi es atzmai min haklal, because he removed himself from the community. If Hashem did it for me, if had you been there, you wouldn't have been redeemed because you weren't part of the community. So regardless of whether we want to say that he partially got a punch in his teeth, whether you want to say that we set them on edge, whether we want to say that we blunt his question, regardless. But he's getting it because he removed himself from the community. Vayikra has to tell us the value of each individual. But Bamidbar then tells us that value is because you're part of something which is larger than you. We have the counting of the flock, the 10th one, which goes underneath the shevet, the staff. Another name, of course, for the tribes is shevet, the 10th one. We read about this. It's very much described on a Sanatekiv, on Yom Kippur. Just a second. So we need to look at the individual. But even when we do count them, you cannot say, all right, I've got 100 in the field. Let me take 10 of them. In order to get to 10th one, you've got to count the 9. The 10th one, you're not taking 10%, but you're taking every 10th one. You can only get to every 10th one by counting 1 through to 9, and then I take the 10th one. So Moshe is specifically being told to count the Jewish people Bamidbar in the desert. But when you're in the desert, you have an Oyha you have a designated meeting place. A Moyed is a desert, something that's designated. We have a Yom Tov is a Moyed, an appointed time. The Mishkan was the Oyha the appointed place. Because even though we're in a midbar, even though we're in a desert, you've got to have time, place, regulations, which I think speaks to us a lot now. It's something which I reminded a number of my colleagues about at the very beginning of lockdown. was at Chazak. It was 9 weeks ago. We are in a midbar. We're in a wilderness at the moment. We don't have the anchor of the physical shul. But Bamidbar, B'oy HaMoed, have that designated place. That's why I daven in the same place every single day. In shul, you should have a mokum kavua. It's why we daven at the same time. We don't have a minyan. Why do we all need to get on and daven at the same time together? It's a pain in the proverbial. It'd be far easier daven by yourself. I could get up at normal time, 7 o'clock, shacharis, have the rest of the day. If I want to shlof until 11, I can shlof till 11. Because you need to have seder. You need to have an order. So Hashem says to Moshe, Bamidbar, number one, when you count them, they've got to know no one has ownership here. But they have to be designated. Have to have the designated time and a designated place. On the first of the second month. Why second? Gave you your mitzvah. This is the first month. You've got to know when you are. Forgive me.
Rabbi, do you mind if I just interrupt you a second about
You already have done.
this moment at cloud? The point about the wicked servant. This moment at cloud.
Yes.
The Prushim come from the word lifrosh, which means to separate from. To what extent did they not its moment at cloud?
Because a Pharisee or the Perushim were those that separated themselves from ritual impurity. So that's correct. Here, what the Rasha did was he was mafresh himself from the community. The other thing the Perushim are sometimes described as being is that they separated themselves from the Sadducees, who connected with the Romans. So we were told that when we were in Egypt, we were Matsuyonim. We were very distinct. We had a unique mode of dress. We were told we didn't change our dress, our language, or our names. Yes, you got to be separate. And Lord Sachs, decades ago, he was saying this was when Islam was really starting to grow in England. You know, the numbers were just starting to go on the rise. He says, what Islam needs to do is learn. He says, if we can pat ourselves on the back, what Anglo Jewry did brilliantly was it integrated without becoming assimilated. We found our roots here in England, but without becoming part of the hodgepodge of New York. We really, we kept, so it's not a problem to be Porush. It's good to separate yourself from that which is wrong. The Rasha, Haiti Asmi Menaklali, separates himself from amongst the community. That is wrong. So two different things.
Thank you.
Welcome. So we are in the correct time, the correct place by Yom Mayed, but also in the correct time. I said at the beginning, from the time we left Egypt, the counting of the months were very much according to our calendar. So the first day of the month, it's the second month in the second year from leaving the land of Egypt, i.e., when we became a nation, when we started counting our days according to a different beat. The Jewish nation has always marched to the beat of its own drum. And that is what we have to do. We have to know our timetable, which is why history lesson 2 weeks ago, we looked at the development of the calendar by Hillel II, and we learned that not long before, 25 years beforehand, they set up their own, the Roman Empire set up its own, Constantine set up its own calendar, which is why it was so important that Hillel has to lock down the Jewish calendar. We've got to know when we are. Our Yomim Tovim, our Shabbos. We're learning very recently, we did the Gemara Shabbos. If you get confused what day of the week it is, what day do I keep Shabbos? A Jew has got to know what it is. And the message I gave last week is if you forget, you've got two options of how you count. Do we go today's Shabbos and I count another 6 days, or we do say today's Sunday and then I catch up to Shabbos? And we gave the Psak halacha is, if you're wandering in the desert, you get lost, you lose track of the days, you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you get to Shabbos. Why? Because that's the way it worked for Hashem. So even our calendar has got to have its structure, but what's at the head? So Pasuk base tells us Su'u, to count. But the word Su'u also means something else. We've had it in Kisisa Esrosh B'nai Sol, when you will count. The word Su'u doesn't just mean to count, but next week, Sedra is called Nosoi. got the same thing. Nosoi esroish b'nei Yisrael, when you count the heads. But what does the word nosoi se'u? Don't just mean count. There's another word that it means to raise up.
Out of Hallel, Su Roshechem.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
Raise up.
To raise up, to lift something up. Lehisna, to raise something up. The word nace as well is to raise something up. Su'u, you're raising up. Esroish koladas b'nei Yisrael mishpacheitzon v'veisavesam. Here is the crux of what we want to look at. Now, a number of years ago, we were discussing with somebody whether we say this is a crux, whether that actually is referring to the crucifix or not. But this is the nub of what we want to get at over here. Su'u, you're raising up the roish, the head of what? Adas b'nei Yisrael. We've got here two ways. One of them is they are an Ada. Now, Ian, I may be setting myself up here for an argument or a failure. I don't know, because Ian asked me to send him the concordance of every time you have the word Adas b'nei Yisrael in the entire scriptures. So I don't know whether or not I picked the right topic, because he might already have his guns loaded. But we've got Adas. We've then got B'nai Yisrael, Lemishbechosam, the families, Leveisavesam, to the house, Esnachta, we've got the comma in the pasuk, and then we've got B'misbashim, where she counted the names, Kol Zochar, every male, Legulgaloisam, according to their head. So we've got within this one verse, count the Jews. No, raise the heads of the congregation of the children of Israel to the houses, to the fathers' homes, according to the number of the names, the males, according to their skulls. You know, if you handed in an English essay with the verse, with a sentence written like that, you would get a failure. But the Torah is not written as a literary masterpiece. It's written as a moral code. And when the Torah is telling Moshe this and telling us something very, very important with how you count, why you count. My little snippet there earlier on the week of when we got to day 61 was because if you have echad b'shishim, if you can get nullified 1 in 60, but therefore day 61 had the distinction of being the first day that could be totally nullified. I've got 60. Got one bad day can be totally nullified, but you can have a dovish b'minyan if you got something which is sold according to its number, not by its volume or by its weight. It is not nullified. So when you're counting someone, you're giving them an importance, and when you give them an importance, you run the risk of that importance being abused or misunderstood. So number one, Sa'um, we're being told to raise something up. We're raising up the head, we're elevating somebody. And in oftentimes in Chassidus, this is looking at the penitent, the Baal Teshuva, who has to be raised up. You raise me up. Ian quoted from Hallel, to raise yourself up. We have a neshama, a soul, which is animated in various parts of the body. Koyach hariyah, the power to see, is embodied within the eyes. Koyach hashmiya, the power to hear, is embodied in the physical aspect, which is our ear. The koyach hamoyach, the ability to think, the intellect, finds itself in our brain. The koyach, or the strength of the emotions, is found in our hearts. The strength to literally have is found in our limbs. But there is a higher strength, the neshama, which is the very life force of who and what we are, is not in any part of our body. And for the majority of our life, we are not even aware of it. The only time, the main time a person will be aware of it is either just before they die, or if they're being asked to either apostatize, transgress, or give up their life. Now here, that's in the balance. And so the Su'u, what are we elevating over here, is that we've got to take this part of our soul and say, what's being raised up? My entire life force is going to be raised up for Torah and mitzvahs. We do Torah. Yeah, I learn. I'm using my mouth. I'm using my brain. I'm shaking the Lord of an Esrog. I'm using my hands. But what about the essence of who I am? one of the, I forget which one, I think it was the Alter Rebbe, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, was being asked by his young grandson, who was an orphan, who's saying to him, "Where's Zaidi? Where's Granddad?" He said, "I'm here." He goes, "No, that's Zaidi's board." "Where's Zaidi?" He goes, "Yeah, no, that's Zaidi's hentela." "Where's Zaidi?" "Oh, that's Zaidi's heart. Where's Zaidi?" Until the kid gives a hug. He goes, it's not because you grabbed hold of me, because there's that love, that feeling. That's essence of what you need to lift up. It's not an individual capability, power, or faculty. It's the essence of who you are, which is the Rosh, the head. We're being told over here now that what we're raising up over here has got to be the very essence of who you are. When Yaakov is going out, when he's leaving his father's home, he's on his way to Lavan, and he stops that fateful night, and he goes to sleep, and he has a dream of the ladder. Before he goes to sleep, he takes 12 stones and he puts them around his head. What's he trying to do? Scared of wild animals? They'll eat his body. He was symbolizing something so important. When I'm going out to Lavan, I'm going out to somewhere very, very different. I've got to make sure that what I protect is my head, because where the head looks, the body will follow. That's what we're told. Do not follow your heart and your eyes, because first we're told the easier one, then the harder one. Your eyes, where the eyes see, out of sight, out of mind. You're moving along in that direction. So we've got to lift up the Rosh, the head of everything, the very essence of who you are, of Adas B'nai Yisrael. What does the word Adas mean? Call Adas, all of the Adas of the B'nai Yisrael. The word Adas is?
Community.
Community. Why does the word Adas mean community? What's the root of the word Adas?
Meaning witness.
Correct, well done. Of Ada, an aid, a witness. A community, the essence of a community is that it is a witness to the fact that we are a community. If the members of the community will not stand and be a witness for each other, then this isn't a community. It's just a bunch of nomads who happen to be living on the same street within the same town. You have to be witness. We say if the nation saw something and did not object, saw something doing wrong, then they are held responsible. We have the din of Eglo Arufa. If you have a stranger who's found dead outside the city gates, then a model they would see which is the city which is closest to it. And the city which is closest to it is held responsible. How on earth is it that outside of your city gate somebody died because as a community you didn't witness this poor person's suffering, his inability to look after himself, and therefore you've got to go along and take a young calf that's not done, and you break its neck. But it's all because as a community, you are witnesses, and you're witnesses for each other. Individuals become a community not by an order that comes to us from outside, but by a shared concern which calls each and every one of us from our hearts. We are an Ada, we are a testimony, a witness to each other. Just a second, yes.
I need to print something up a few pages ago. Can I WhatsApp them on my phone and then print the letters?
Yeah, WhatsApp, that I'll be able to do it from my computer, in case it doesn't do it from there. But WhatsApp,
If it doesn't do it from here, I'll just tell you.
wait a second. Tell her to call, and I don't know if it is
They
over.
can't get it. That's why they called me.
Right, yeah. How much is it?
8 pages. It's black and white.
Fine, because if not, we can do it in the what's it called, in the shul office, yeah. So we've got the Ada. But the Ada has got to be as part of Adas B'nai Yisrael. You've got to be witness to B'nai Yisrael. There's got to be a framework for this people. This Ada is the independent bearers. Now, interesting enough, we go along. Who got counted here? It was only everyone. We counted the men over the age of 20. Because when it comes to bearing witness, there's a certain qualities here. We'll leave aside the concept of why the women weren't counted. We'll get to that maybe another time. But we're not just counting everyone. There are people who have positions of responsibility. They are the standard bearers and the guardians of this mission of the B'nai Yisrael. So they are Adas. They are the witnesses to the fact that we are B'nai Yisrael. And B'nai Yisrael is going to tell us something important. What is B'nai Yisrael? Literally, the translation of the word B'nai Yisrael is
Israel.
Children of Israel.
Children of Israel.
Sons of Israel.
what is the children of Israel?
Yaldei Israel.
Pardon?
That will be Yaldei Israel. It's Bnei Israel is sons of Israel.
Fine. What? Don't try and put Ivrit into Lashon HaKodesh. Bnei Yisrael is the children of Israel. The fact that in Ivrit, Bnei means sons and Yaldei is children is irrelevant. Bnei Yisrael, the context of it here, is all of the children of Israel. But the Eidah is their witnesses to Bnei Yisrael, but Bnei Yisrael, the children of one man. And what it's in why we called all the time Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, because there is one singular origin to each and every one of us. And so when we're acting as Adam, we're acting as witnesses, we're acting as witnesses to the fact that actually our community is Bnei Yisrael. The word Eidah, we have previously is Lifkudehem in Shemois. When we talk about when you've got the first counting of this set of three of the sins, Kisisa Esroish Bnei Israel, when you count Sisa, when you raise the heads of the children of Israel, same thing, Lifikudehem, according to their numbers. The numbers, the Pikude Bnei Israel, the numbers, the mission of the Bnei Israel, those who we are entrusted to act as our witnesses for us. So this is not a population census. It's not the number of the people, but it's the number of those who can be an aid, who can be a man, who can be a witness to the fact that we are the children of Israel. But the next way of describing us is lemishbachesam leveisavisam. Individual men don't make up the community of Israel, but within the national census, there are two inner circles within the national census. That's why lemishbachesam, we're counting you, those who are going to be the Adam, those who are going to be the witnesses that we all stem from one man, that we are all have a common origin. They've also got to be lemishbachesam. They've got to be according to their families, and leveis avisam, also to their father's house. The word mishpacha, a family, comes. The root of it is shefach, shin pei ches, which is shefa, which is that there is an abundance. So you've got shefa in North Manchester. Well, shefa bracha is an abundance. An abundance, what's it? When do you see an abundance of something? When it's gathered together. If you've got, I've got an abundance of books. Well, how do you know I've got an abundance of books? Because they're all there. If I'd lent all of my books out and I'd lent everything and they were scattered all over the place, and you don't see the abundance of books. An abundance is when things are gathered together. The concept of a mishpacha. Can't you wait until 2? Can't you wait till 2 o'clock? Yeah. A mishpacha is the elements that joins individuals into a group, a family. And again, how much more so at the moment, the family unit. I mean, society, the concept of a nuclear family unit has gone out of the window within contemporary society. Now, at the moment, people are being forced to live with their family. Baruch Hashem, for most of us, that's nice. It's beautiful to spend time. For some people, granted, it's been an absolute nightmare if you've been living in a dysfunctional family unit, or God forbid, even an abusive family unit. But a family, what is a family? A family is something that there is the shefach, but the mem beforehand, the mishpacha, means that we come. Mem, the word mem is from. Mem as a prefix means from. We come from this shefach. We come from this multitude of everyone being together, i.e., that we have a common descent. There's a marriage that brings us together, that when husband and wife come together, from that shefa comes the mishpacha. That's what comes out of it over here. So the Moshe is telling them, Hashem tells Moshe, what I want you to do is to raise up the head. There needs to be something that's higher than their individual parts. The head, the intellect, something even higher than that. Of the Eidah, of those who are willing to bear testimony that they are Bnei Yisrael. And if they are Bnei Israel, they've got to remember, though, that within each individual one, there is that critical, important mishpachosam, that family. And that family is a mishpach. It comes from the shafach. It comes from the multitude that's gathered together. But there's also the base avisam. The individual family has its place also within a greater context. The context is the base avisam, the house of the father, i.e. the tribe. And the Gemara tells us that you get your tribe from your father, and you don't get your tribe from the mother. The base of is the unity of that tribe. The individual forms a family. The families form the tribes. The tribes together form Base Israel, the house of an Israel. The other name for a tribe, how do we refer to the tribes in Hebrew? Shevet. And there's another word. The end of the book of Bamidbar, matois, a matter, which is a staff, which is the common stem that everyone comes along. There's many families that come along together. So we've got the base Israel, we've got the 12 bote of it, the 12 tribes. Each tribe has got various mishpachos. Each mishpach has got that first unit, that individual who is going to stand and give edus and give testimony over here. That's what's unique about Jewish nationalism. To quote verbatim from Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, well, let's paraphrase that. To quote verbatim the translation of Shimshon Raphael's original German, this is the English translation, the nation as a whole is always considered one house, the house of Israel. And the members of that nation are always called the children of one man, the children of Israel. But at the same time, each separate unit remains, they're subordinate to and encompassed by the larger whole of the Bati Avos and the Mishpachos. Moshe is being given a task over here, which is giving over to the Jewish people, which we have to not just embody, but live by. There'd been a problem. There'd been the sin of the golden calf, which was brought about through stupidity, partially misunderstanding. It was a calamity. Moshe, there's immediately there is the plague. There is the first census. Moshe manages to gain achievement, atonement. We build the Mishkan. Once we've built the Mishkan, this central focal point, you could have been forgiven for thinking, that's it. I've got a building. We've got the place where Hashem can come along. What's the individual? Hashem tells Moshe, I need you now to count them. And when you count them, they Zolam Vista, they've got to know. It's not about it's about, are you willing to be an aid? Are you willing to be a witness over here? And when you are a witness, there are certain criteria, certain things you've got to understand. You're being witness to the fact that you are Bnei Yisrael, the children of one man. Yaakov said, Mitose Shalema, his bed was complete. There was no imperfections in those who came out of him. We all descend from this one man. You're not better than anybody else. But you also have your family unit. The family is the mishpacha. It comes from the sanctity of that family unit. And within those families, there are the tribes together. We all have to have this responsibility of knowing we're part of something larger. The house of Israel and the members of the children of Israel means that the Jewish nation is not going to just be an abstract idea without a real union. Argument that there was a number of years ago, and were running out of places in the Jewish day schools, so they said they were going to put a. Oh, my internet connection's unstable at the moment. Are the kids both gone on computer? Oh, interesting. Can you all hear me well?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, okay. No, just that my internet connection was unstable since I come back again. So they were saying that you could only go to school. You had to fulfill the criteria, prove you're Jewish. Of course, they went to court. It's racist. It's the other. So then they came up with this whole fake concept, of you get your points, and it basically meant in order to get your full quota of points, you pretty much had to be going to shul, which basically weeded out the non-Jews because they weren't going to go along to shul, and therefore they could always give credit and precedence to those that had done, and they got around it. But what was the argument? What is it? What does it mean to be Jewish? What are you part and parcel of? What is it? Is it just, that you keep kosher? Do you have a little bit of Jewish in the family? You keep Hanukkah, what is it that's being Jewish? Being Jewish, what these two psukim tell us over here, being Jewish is a responsibility of something which is larger than each and every one of you. Even when Yisrael, Yaakov, 600,000, his descendants came to 600,000 men. They were still members of Beis Av, one household, one mishpacha, one family. We have this, whenever you go on holiday, it doesn't matter where you go to, everybody always sees the other Jew. You see them from the other side of the street. Hello, how are you? And I always asked, I wonder, does a Chinaman that's traveling through Italy, when he sees another Chinaman coming walking, hello, can he? No, but something about Jews, unless we must qualify this. If you're walking along in your Huppitzville and you see another from Jew, you run them out. Well, at least I do. And if I see a congregant, but there is this unity that is felt, and it's not just because, we're a small nation. Well, what difference does it make? Yeah, and when you meet, what's the game that two Jews who have not seen each other before meet on a cruise ship? What is the game that you play that first night when you're seated at dinner? Besides for noting who got invited to the captain's table and who didn't. Just a second, Alan.
Mishpachology.
And if when two Jews meet, if within 5 minutes you've not found out that you're related, one of you ain't Jewish. You've got to be. If you're not related, one of you is an imposter. And if within 10 minutes there's not been a faribble, then both of you are imposters. There is something that binds us together. And now that the Mishkan had been built, Hashem says to Moshe, I need you to raise up those that are going to be the Edom. It's not just about the community as a whole, but I need men who are going to give testimony over here, the fact that we've got the family unit, which is the Mem Shefach, from the multitude coming together as one. There's a Beis Av. They are their individual tribes and they've got a responsibility. And each tribe has its responsibility. And you can't go from one tribe to another, which is why when we learned about the division of the land of Israel, it belongs to you. And you can't sell your portion to somebody from another tribe because there is something unique. You've got your purpose in life. You can't do somebody else's purpose in life. But all of them, everything is to pass it on. Stuart Einer has joined in with us. Hello, Stuart. You're getting the last 10 minutes of the share, which is always the best part of the share because we're about to finish. Everybody is happy over here. But before we finish it, we've got the Bamidbar Shemes. And here we've got the crucial part of it. Because once we've said that they are Edom, once we've said the fact that they are all got that testimony that they've got to give as they descend from this one man, and there's a family unit and there is the tribal unit. There's also Bamidbar Shemes to count the names. Why to count the names? What do I need a name for? Do I need a name for myself? I need a name for somebody else that they can call me. And when somebody else calls me, is saying, Ich darf dir, I need you. And a name is generally only needed when the person is not right in front of you. Otherwise, I just, oh, you over there. But when you're further away, or when there's a mixture of them and I need one individual, this is your name with your tafkid, your purpose in life. It's why the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, what did? They took away people's names and they gave them a number. Ach, you're nobody. No, we said, this is my name. The Bamidbar Shemes, the counting of that name, the name you received is important. It's why I go mad when people say, I don't need to be called Rabbi, but don't call me Dov. And it's nothing to do with Dov Jaffe. It's because my name is David. That's my name. Dov is a different name. It's not even a diminutive of David. Dov means a bear. David is the beloved. It's two different names. And somebody can be called Dov David. I've got cousins, brothers. One's called Dov and the other one's called David. two different names. This is my name. And what is it that, if you want to see the nastiness, where's the best place to go to find nastiness? Middle school, the upper echelons of primary school, in the beginning. And what's the worst thing that you make fun of the person's name? And so we're told, B'mispar Shemes, I'm going to count you by your names. Kol Zachar, every one of you is going to have to be a Zachar, a man. And the word Zachar is also related to what? Ian, please don't say a word. The other word Zachar.
Remembrance.
Jonathan Edwards, it's finally good to have you back here. Zachar, you remember. You have to remember the Gulguloisam. The word Gulguloisam is a skull. And the other word Galgal. Also, does anybody know what the word Galgal means? Anybody know the word Galgal?
Wheel.
Who said wheel?
Me.
Ian. See? Galgal is a wheel. A gal is a wheel, but Galgal is also to roll over, which is where the word Gilgul, reincarnation, comes from. According to the skull. Why according to the skull over here? Either the skull is the concrete physical aspect of the individual, but it's also that which rolls on. And there needs to be something that you pass on to the next generation itself as well. So I said we would only get these two psukim done because they're giving us a fundamental, important lesson. Number one, Hashem called to Moshe Bamidbar in the desert belongs to no one. But he tells them you need to know when you're in the desert, there's an oil moed. Even in the desert, there's a place and there's a time. It's a specific date. The first day of the second month of the second year, you've got to know where you are. Even if you are floundering about in a desert, it belongs to no one. Know where and when you exist. And it's no good saying, I wish, if only the planes would take me back off to Barbados, it'd be all right. If only I wasn't in. You are here now. This is a date. This is a place. This is where you are. And what is it that you as the leader have to do? You've got to call together the men of your community. That each and every one of them has got to raise themselves up to be a witness to the fact that they will testify on behalf of the others. Why? Because they come from Bnei Yisrael, one man. And within that, there is the individual compartments. Don't try to go into somebody else's. There's mishpachos and the families, there's Beis Avosam. There is the tribes of each one having their own. And once you have that, don't forget your individual responsibility. The Mispar Shemos, I'm counting you by your name, which belongs to you. And I want you to be the Kol Zachar, to be the man, but also Liskoir, to remember. But it's no good just remembering it for yourself. The remembrance has got to be the Gulguloisam, that concrete skull, but it also has to be rolling on to the next generation. Otherwise, your testimony is taken with you to the grave. And that helps nobody.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Ian,
Shikaya.
you're
Yeah.
very welcome. Stuart, it was a delight to have you on. Even just a fun. In essence, I could have said everything in the 5 minutes, but we had to get that was just a build up, and then you got the nucleus of it, the nub of it at the very
It's
end.
very good. They're very good.
Thank you very, very much.
Excellent.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you much indeed.